You'll want to watch a Michael Jackson thriller movie with me. It's a doozy. Everything started in 1931 when Dr. Richard Vonnegut, a sadistic surgeon, conducted gruesome experiments on patients in an asylum in Los Angeles. That Hitler stash is a huge red flag. Eventually, the patients revolted, brutally killing the staff and setting the building on fire. Decades later, Evelyn, the wife of a wealthy amusement park owner named Price, calls him to request hosting her birthday party at the abandoned asylum. Rich people are too bored with their lives. Price dismisses her to proceed with interviews, showing journalists around his park. He brings them on an elevator, and it's rickety as hell. It plummets all of a sudden. But you see, Price is sadistic, and it's nothing but a ride. A 480-pixel screen really fooled the Ahhs. Then he fools them again with a Final Destination-style ride, but the crash is fake with dummies. He returns to his office and types a list of invitees on his computer. However, this list differs from the one Evelyn sent him, and he offers $1 million to each guest for attending the haunted house. After he leaves the office, his computer automatically cancels the invites and replaces the names with a different set of people. On the night of the party, the guests, Sarah, a VP at a big company, Eddie, a Fwayne man who was a former baseball player, Melissa, an OnlyPans celebrity, and Donald, a doctor. They arrive at the haunted house where they are welcomed by Pritchett, the cynical house sitter. Sporting a questionable Tyler Perry wig, he guides them through the gigantic building and shows them a stained glass artwork on the ceiling. While some are terrified, Melissa captures the view with her very large iPhone. While waiting for Price, Evelyn arrives and expresses her confusion about the unfamiliar guests. Suddenly, the stained glass breaks, nearly hitting her. Fortunately, Eddie pushes her out of the way just in time, but she gets a cut on her cheek and the fillers start to ooze out. They better not kill the black man first. When Price finally shows up, he tries to scare the guests by claiming the place is haunted and announces the start of a game. Evelyn, unhappy with the unexpected peasants, demands to speak with Price privately. She complains about the people he invited. To her surprise, Price tells her he didn't invite those guests and suspects, that she hacked into his computer to include them. Evelyn denies inviting broke people, and they even wonder if a ghost might be responsible. She tells Price to kill himself as a way to atone for the error, but Price, knowing she is a gold digger, lists the series of staged accidents she planned to get him killed, like lacing his Ozempic with concrete mix. He also mentions the people he has caught her eating out with. Despite their tumultuous relationship, Price remains married to her. When they go to the guests, Pritchett insists on getting his money, so Price takes out some checks and begins to write $1 million for each of the guests. He asks each of them to introduce themselves. Oddly, Sarah lies about her name and gives them a fake one. Then Price tells them they will receive the money if they survive until dawn the next morning. He admits that it's the first time he has heard of them, confusing the guests since he invited them. As Price tries to explain, Pritchett becomes impatient and demands his money and would rather leave than receive the full $1 million. Price hands him a check, but just then, the security system of the asylum shuts down, trapping everyone inside. Pritchett injures himself while trying to find an exit and explains how only 5 of Vonnegut's sadistic staff survived the lockdown incident back in 1931. He warns them that the house is alive and they are all going to die, but the guests don't take him seriously. Evelyn joins them and tells Price to stop joking because the man is always playing jokes, but he denies it. Pritchett says there's a control room in the basement, but it's basically a maze. They discover a coffin Price left filled with guns, so they arm themselves. Eddie and Sarah then follow Pritchett to the basement, while Price excuses himself for a dookie. In the basement, they find bodies that were preserved, showing us what happens when you overdose on Ozempic. As they explore further, Eddie saves Sarah from being crushed by falling debris. Meanwhile, Price meets Schechter, a security man in the control room, and praises him for effectively scaring the guests by locking down the place. But Schechter denies doing that. Price thinks it must be Evelyn behind it. He rejoins the party in the basement, where they see a door that appears to be sealed. Pritchett warns them that it isn't an exit, and they continue navigating the maze. They stumble upon a room where Vonnegut conducted shock treatments on patients. They move to the next chamber, which was used on patients with schizophrenia. At a certain point, Eddie and Sarah become separated from the group while trying to find Price. To fix the lights, Eddie lifts Sarah to reach the fixtures, and they suddenly want to make an Oreo swirl, but they must continue searching for the group. Eddie asks Sarah about her true identity after seeing through her facade, but she stands by her lie. Mistakenly thinking that Eddie is still with her, Sarah begins to open up about her past, saying she's actually an ass as taint for a VP, but she soon realizes he is not with her. Concerned, she starts searching for him and eventually follows his silhouette to a room where he leaps into a tank of blood. Panicking, she rushes to pull him out, but just as she tries to rescue him, Eddie appears, and it suddenly dawns on her that she's been deceived. As Sarah struggles to get her hands out of period blood, she is unexpectedly pulled in, but her arm strength from fisting is no match as she pulls herself out. Furious, they return to Evelyn and Donald to explain what happened. Evelyn, however, tells them to blame Old Man Price, and just then, Price arrives with Pritchett as an alibi and claims that there is no control room. He insists that they must work together, and that's when they notice Melissa has gone to the basement for some OnlyPans footage. Melissa enters one of the abandoned wards and captures a gruesome operation being performed in an empty room through her camera. She checks the footage repeatedly to confirm her findings, but the figures in the room notice her. Out of the corner of her eye, she spots another figure that suddenly rushes at her, scaring the IUD out of her. The others hear her scream and go searching for her, but they only find a blood trail in Melissa's video recorder on the floor. Following the trail, they see blood splattered on the wall and deduce that it has led into the main building. When they return to the upper floor, Sarah reviews the recorder and sees a clip of Melissa being attacked and then dragged away. Evelyn later confronts Price, accusing him of being involved in Melissa's disappearance. Price denies it, but Evelyn pulls out a gun and fires a warning shot to intimidate him. Before heading back to her room, Evelyn threatens to kill anyone who peeks at her door because she plans on using her vibrating toothbrush. After she leaves, everyone glares at Price as he struggles to defend himself. Eddie then hands Sarah a gun, and they decide to find a way out of the building, while Donald plans to search for Melissa. Price returns to Schechter to check the security feed for any sign of Melissa, only to discover the security guard has been brutally murdered. So the black man isn't the first to die. This movie gets 2 thumbs up my Ahhs hole from me. He reviews the footage and sees Dr. Vannicutt's ghost on the main floor, prompting him to leave. The lights begin to flicker, and the group gathers in the basement to locate the source of the disturbance. When they reach the electroshock room, they find Evelyn strapped to a chair and being electrocuted. They quickly shut down the machine and check on her, but after examining her, Donald declares her dead by Diddy execution. Heartbroken, Price lashes out, accusing one of them of murdering his wife. He points his gun at them, demanding to know the truth. In response, Sarah pulls out her Glock, but still unfazed, Price nearly shoots her until Eddie tackles him and knocks him out. They lock Price in the Chamber of Illusions, and Donald volunteers to keep watch. After the rest leave, Donald activates the machine, causing Price to start hallucinating. We even get a glimpse of a male version of Michael Jackson. Meanwhile, Eddie and Sarah continue their search through the dungeon for clues and eventually find Vannicutt's office. As they investigate, they notice a photo frame displaying Vannicutt and the 5 employees who made it out alive, discovering that they are all descendants of each one. Pritchett joins them and insists that the house is the one that invited them and that it's angry. Eddie then realizes that Donald is the only one among them who doesn't have a relative in the frame. Donald returns to Evelyn and kisses her and caresses her. He a nympho. Then he injects her with Ozempic to restart her heart. Evelyn praises him for helping her fake her death and then asks about Price. He tells her that he's barely alive. When she learns that they haven't found Melissa, Evelyn panics, fearing that Melissa might be spying on them for Price. Donald tries to calm her down, believing that someone will kill Price eventually, but Evelyn insists it won't happen unless their lives are at stake. They need to frame Price for a murder to provoke that threat. When Donald asks where they'll find another body, Evelyn stabs him multiple times with a scalpel and leaves him to die. The group look for Donald and Price. Evelyn opens the Chamber of Illusions, and Price collapses to the floor. The group heads back to the dungeon in search of Donald and discovers a ward heavily stained with blood and a surgical saw covered in it. Quickly, they return to the chamber where Price was locked and find Donald's head detached from his body. In a panic, Sarah searches for Price to confront him, but hears Melissa crying for help. Following the voice, she finds Price, who is covered in blood, and asks her to assist him. Instead, Sarah empties her gun into him. The others rush to her side, calming her down before leading her upstairs. Once they leave, Evelyn approaches Price's corpse and insults him before telling him that all she ever had her eyes on from the moment she met him was his money and his 4-incher. To her surprise, he grabs her and reveals he's wearing a bulletproof vest. Then he tells her that he has everything about her recorded on tape. He drags and throws her about, saying he'll kill her, and she ends up falling into another room. There, a cloud of ghosts appears and swallows Evelyn up, wilting her so much, not even her Botox stood a chance. Price backs up slowly and bumps into a room where he sees Melissa's body parts hung on the wall. The cloud of ghosts creeps out of the room and Price bolts for his life, but it chases after him. He realizes he's been locked out, so he calls for help, but the ghost closes in on him. Upon hearing his voice, Pritchett opens the door, but he's immediately swallowed up faster than his career's downfall. Price quickly runs out of the basement and yells at the others to run. Confused, they follow him to the upper floor, and he admits that the house is alive. Not knowing a way out, Price brainstorms and concludes that the pulleys can be controlled from the attic, so he rushes there. Eddie and Sarah, on the other hand, finally see the entity chasing after them, so they run for their lives and charge into the attic. Price, who got there earlier, struggles to move the gears, but with sheer luck, he hits a lever and the gears move, opening a window in the attic. Eddie and Sarah struggle to get upstairs, and on their way, the entity chasing them takes Melissa's form and beckons Sarah to stay, but they hurry and get to the top floor. On getting there, Eddie goes to the open window to hold it for Sarah to go through, but the cloud of ghosts appears and nearly swallows her. Price pushes her out of the way, and he gets Thanos snapped. During that same time, the ghost cuts the rope of the lever, closing the window in the process, but Eddie gets Sarah out in time. As a result, he's locked in the building, and the ghost approaches him to devour him. It tells Eddie through multiple faces that no one gets to escape, and he'll suffer like the others. But Eddie yells at it that he has nothing to do with the house and was adopted. Out of the blue, Pritchett's ghost appears and pulls the rope to lift the window just in time for Sarah to pull Eddie out of the house. They finally catch a breather, realizing that it's dawn, and see an envelope stuck in the window. When they open it, they discover it contains all the checks Price had written to the invited guests earlier, and they're not written to anyone specific, so these two about to be multimillionaires. They start laughing like they've gone mad. After a while, they ask each other how they'll get down from the building. Honestly, this movie was revolutionary during its time for allowing a black man to survive the bloodbath. What did y'all think of this one? It's definitely below mid for me.
Hey, if you like this video, make sure you subscribe now and turn on the notification, because YouTube isn't recommending my videos. And if you'd like to watch more foolishness, click here or here.